Congratulations, Vinny. Arsenal. Vicky. Arsenal looking really good.
Got a name change. Yes, they are. We beat Manchester United.
Well done.
So very gratifying.
In the meantime, we're going to go back to our panel of experts here on climate change to get some final perspectives going forward. We'll start on the very end there. James Mwangi, your thoughts going forward?
As the youngest continent, Africa cannot afford to limit our conversation about climate change to talking about what other people need to do about it and how they need to help us. We need to take ownership. We have the resources, the talent, and the energy to be a 21st century green economy giant and to achieve climate positive growth. But that requires us to apply ourselves to asking, what do we do in this current moment, not just to follow the pathways that have been taken by other parts of the world, but to chart a new path and a path that makes sense for us. It's not about being the subject of other people's agenda. It's not about being the subject of other people's pity or charity. It's about taking agency, embracing urgency, knowing our feasibility to make the change, and eventually creating hope.
Absolutely. Dr. David.
Thank you. I think first, we, and especially we as Amnesty International, reject carbon trade as a climate solution, because we believe wealthy countries industrialized against our back. They industrialized while we were still largely agricultural. Now they want to continue industrializing, they want to continue polluting, and then they pay us to absorb the pollution. So we completely reject it internationally, and we also reject the decision of the Kenyan government to enact a legislation to operationalize carbon trading. Now, secondly, we want climate adaptation financing, increased climate adaptation financing, including fulfilling the 100 billion per year commitments that from earlier COPs. And this also means that we also want easier access for African countries on the Global Climate Fund and other climate finances. Because as we speak, many African countries are getting very little money, possibly due to, we're still doing research about it as to why this is happening. So for example, we have China getting more money than Malawi, than Somalia. We have Serbia getting more money than some other poor countries, more than Burundi and so on. So we want climate adaptation financing to be shared equitably and for that funding to be increased. We also want just technologies. We're saying even as we mine copper, even as we mine cobalt, even as we do hydropower and so on, we must respect the rights of local communities. Because we've had a situation where local communities' rights are violated. We now have a situation where children are being born with deformities in DRC because companies are mining cobalt carelessly, polluting the environment of the communities. Now, we also want a operationalization of the Loss and Damage Fund, not in 2025, but this year. And especially, we want it to be cautioned against geopolitics, because we saw what happened with COVAX. We came together, the international community, mobilized money to help countries deal with COVID. What happened? Geopolitics came in, countries started entering bilateral arrangements based on their interest. COVAX was essentially quashed. We don't want that to happen to the Loss and Damage Fund. So we're saying African countries must look at the guidelines that will come up as to the implementation of this fund very, very carefully. And lastly, we want debt relief to enable African countries to cope with the devastating impacts of climate change on health, education, food, and livelihoods. Thank you.
Absolutely. Dr. Sheila.
Well, we at Alliance for Science are advocating for really three things. This whole week, we have a side event at the Climate Action Zone in Radisson Blu Upper Hill, and we're bringing together the voices of farmers. We have farmers in the room saying, we want a National Farmers' Day because what we need in order to survive the impacts of climate change are better inputs. We need governments to invest more in helping us today to be able to adapt to it, and you can make a real change today no matter what happens at COP. Secondly, we want holistically to look at how do we as a continent move, not just shifting our narrative from relief to resilience, but our reality to being a more resilient continent. And our resilience is embedded in what we know in terms of our scientific knowledge. We have survived many climatic changes, and some of that knowledge is lost and buried, and we haven't really recognized it. And so those adaptations that have helped us to live as a human race till now, how can we look at the science that underpins that and invest more in those technologies? And then lastly, how can we learn from the Global South? So their commonalities, the Global South being countries in Latin America, in Pacific, in Asia. So this week we've brought our team, where Alliance for Science is global. So we have a large team in Bangladesh, which suffers huge impacts of climate change. And so we have a large team from Bangladesh, but Bangladesh has a transformational story of moving to resilience in one generation. Post-independence, they lost in a famine 1.4 million people. But through improved seed varieties and putting better seeds in the hands of farmers, very targeted, one generation net exporters of rice. So we're buying rice from them. In one generation, they moved to a much more food secure continent. And so science can help you do that. And we're learning from our brothers and sisters in the Global South how that can work for us.
Absolutely. Joseph Marabula, you get the last word.
Good, thank you. Climate change is a challenge, and it's a recognized challenge globally. And we see it in a lot of aspects. We see it in failed rainfall seasons. We see it in droughts. We see it in floods. We see it in failed crop seasons. We see it in food insecurity. We see it in health challenges. We basically see it in every aspect of life. But because it's a challenge, it's also an opportunity. At KICC, we try to train all the people we work with to see this climate change as an opportunity. And this opportunity lies in innovation, in coming up with innovative solutions that help fight not just climate change alone, but also the other development challenges around the world. We see quite a lot of innovations around agribusiness. We run one of the largest agribusiness programs in this country called the AgriBiz, which is about innovating around value chains, moving people from primary value chain all the way to the tertiary value chain. We see a lot of innovations around renewable energy, and many of them are around here. I think this week alone, the president has launched the e-border circle. A number of those people are supported by us to be able to come up with these electric mobility solutions. We see a lot of innovations around water management. We are supporting people to create water, for instance, from the atmosphere. We see a lot of innovations around waste management, people creating innovative products out of waste, things like laptop chargers, things like fashion, things like shoes, and that sort of thing. So what we are basically saying is we need to come together, and this Africa Climate Summit is an opportunity to bring people together to work in partnership to find solutions that move us forward. At this summit, KICC has what's called the KICC Village, the Kenya Climate Innovation Center Village. So, and it will be open the whole week. So if you go there, you'll find most of these innovations that we're talking about. So I urge everybody to come and visit, so that then we are not just talking stories, but we are talking real solutions that can be seen. From the 4th to the 6th of October, we then up that game. We'll have our own investment summit, where we are bringing in a lot of investors to have dialogue with our innovators, with the clients that we support. And this will be at the Edge Convention Center. That's the College of Insurance in South Sea, from the 4th to the 6th of October. So in parting, I think what I want to say is that climate change is a development challenge, but it's also an opportunity for innovation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Joseph Marabula, Dr. Sheila Ochukboju, Dr. David Otieno Ngira, and James Mwangi, the other James Mwangi. Thank you so much for your input and your insights, and all the very best during the Africa Climate Summit.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Yeah.
That does it for Sunday Live, yeah.
Keep it locked to Citizen Television all this week, right?
All this week we'll be here.
All the updates here from the Kenyatta International Convention Center. Thanks so much for being a part of Sunday Live. We'll see you back here next week, same time, same place.
That's right. We have no choice, Jeff. Well, you do.
Have a good week, everybody.
Good night.